and recording. Hey guys, Al here. Making this video today because I got a question regarding the how the Peau Productions non-distortion lenses work on the GoPro cameras when in the driving situation, so drive cam. Now I've got two GoPros with two different lenses. I've got both Hero 6s, and I've got the 3.37mm and the 8.25mm. And I'll be using both of these to record my drive. Now it is COVID lockdown, so it's not going to be a long drive, and I'm literally just going to the local pharmacy to get some medicine, and then coming back. But you'll get a sense of how these work in action. Okay, so let me put this in place. But first, a word from my sponsor. Oh, that's me. Guys, I'm a music producer and audio engineer, and I've noticed quite a few YouTubers, even some bigger channels, who don't know how to make the YouTube dialogue as clear and audible and present as possible. I can help you with that, so please do click the link below to my Fiverr account, where I go into more detail about what I can do for you. You'll notice in this video that even though I'm not super articulate, I'm not using the best mic, and there's a lot of ambient noise and changing sound conditions, you can still hear what I'm saying throughout the video. So check out the link below to see how I can help you make the most of your audio for your videos. All right, back to the video. A couple of thoughts as I'm driving. A couple of points. I am shooting these dash cam using both cameras, just to give you the different perspective between the two different lenses. And I've turned on the Hero 6 stabilization, and I'm not going to do any post-production stabilization on them. I'm also driving, doing some driving on the dirt road, so it's like you can see how it looks when it's really shaky. And obviously, I'll be showing some footage while driving on the tar road. Now, the 3.37mm lens is much closer in zoom factor to the stock GoPro fisheye distortion lens. So basically what Peau Productions says is that you can use the onboard stabilization to stabilize footage from the 3.37mm lens, but because of the zoom factor on the 8.25mm lens, you really need to put it onto a stabilized platform such as a gimbal or a drone or something like that. Now I can't see this footage as being shot while I'm driving, but undoubtedly that's going to be proven in the example footage that I shoot. So a big part of this discussion is obviously what perspective do the two lenses give. Now I'm assuming as I'm driving that the 8.25mm lens will show you literally what's right in front of the car, while the 3.37mm lens will give you more perspective on the road as a whole. So depending on what you want to achieve, whether your main focus is on the car in front of you, or whether you want to get a wider perspective on the road itself, as to which lens you want to use. The other important point, especially if you are an owner of the Hero 7 or a Hero 5, is that the Hero 6 only you can only turn stabilization on for 2.7K resolution footage. So I'm shooting this in 2.7K and not in 4K. If I remember correctly, the Hero 7 does stabilize footage in 4K. So you can bear that in mind as you review this footage. By the way, I own a Toyota Etios, that's what I'm driving in. And it's not a very smooth car. So if your car drive smoother than mine, then obviously you must take that into account. And our roads here have smooth patches and dirt bumpy patches as well. So I'll try and include examples of all types of road surface. The other thing is I'm driving with the cameras inside the car, not on my roof. So bear that in mind. In theory, I would say the higher up you are from the ground level, the more shaky your footage would be. Due to the sort of lever effect of being further away from the stabilized point. I must also say that the cameras are shaking themselves a little bit, I can see. Probably because I haven't got a way of anchoring them solidly to the car, because it's not something I do regularly. You'll notice that the 8.25 is not picking up the hood of my car, whereas the 3.37 is. But I mean, that's probably easy to sort out if I just move it up a bit. Alright, so I've moved the point of view of the 3.37 camera up a little bit. But you start to get an idea of how the perspective changes between the two lenses. I must just make a note that I put the 8.25 on the Gorilla Pod, and the Gorilla Pod itself is shaking a little bit. So think about that in terms of if you've got like a more secure anchor to the car, you might actually get less shake from the camera. But I'm only really able to look at the back of the camera, and it doesn't look like it's actually shaking too much from what the Gorilla Pod is doing. It doesn't look like it's affecting it too much. Okay, I'm on my way to the pharmacy. When I'm going to come back, I'm going to swap the two cameras so that the 3.37mm is on the Gorilla Pod and the 8.25 is on the more stable platform. You can see here in Joburg things are really quiet. In the suburbs, at least, people are sticking to the social distancing, taking it seriously. Unfortunately, in some of our poorer locations, that's not really happening. But, or not happening to extent maybe it should. But people in those locations, sure, I don't know how they're surviving, to be honest. In terms of food, in terms of just being squashed into very small accommodations. So I'm not saying I agree with it, but I kind of understand where they're coming from. I just want to remind you guys that I've tilted up the 3.37mm, the camera with a 3.37mm lens, just to remove the view of the hood. But I'm going to put it back down now to sort of how you probably actually end up using it on your car. So you can see that you do pick up some of the hood on the 3.37mm lens. Fortunately, there's enough traffic, at least, to be able to see other cars on the road. Also, fortunately, not so much traffic that it interferes with me being able to chat, because I can only do one thing at a time, apparently. Or one thing well, anyway. So I'm going to come into the shopping center, going over some speed humps as well, to see how the cameras handle that situation. Alright, so we're coming up to the speed humps. Okay, I've arrived. Hey guys, arrived at the shopping center where the pharmacy is, and going to be going in there and getting some stuff. I'll see you shortly. Cheers. Gosh, okay. I survived that queue. Crazy times in the age of COVID-19. But hope you guys are staying safe. So here I am shooting on the GoPro with 8.25mm lens, and now I've finished shopping. Got some groceries and medication from Discam, and on my way back home. So what I've done now is I've swapped up where the GoPros are, how I put them on the car, because I noticed the Gorilla Pod shaking quite a bit more than the other platform I'm using. So I'm going to see if that makes a difference, and we'll check it out. So yeah, the GoPro with the 3.37mm lens is now going to be on the pretty unstable or pretty sort of shaky Gorilla Pod, and the 8.25mm lens is now on a much more stable platform. So let's see. Okay. One thing I do during this time is be a little bit more generous to the car guards. Here we go, man. Okay, buddy. There's a... I don't know how they're surviving, to be honest. I mean, there is traffic and there's people coming to the shops, but it's severely reduced from your average, well, from before COVID-19 lockdown. So one thing that's interesting to note is in Joburg, the people you see on the streets are those who are from essential services, if they're working, or people like myself who can kind of drive or work to get, to buy groceries. What you don't see is the very poor people who would normally be begging on the streets. And as kind of annoying and irritating as it can be to have to deal with those kind of people, it's like, to be honest, I'm like, I don't know how they're coping, you know. It's just tough, and it's the poorest and the most vulnerable who are going to suffer the most. Beautiful afternoon in Joburg, and one can notice often in sort of towards winter you start getting a haze of smog descending on the city. And now there's still some of that, but it's not as much as typically that would be there. Although people are not really I would assume people are not really building fires at the moment to stay warm, which can create a lot of the smog as well. Okay, I'm gonna go on some dirt road again soon, so you can see what shaky road surface will do to the footage. All right. So now I'm making sure that the GoPro with 8.25mm lens is very secured, securely attached to the dashboard. The GoPro with 3.37mm lens is on the Gorilla Cam and is knocking around. So let's see what it does to the image. We had quite a bit of rain here in Joburg recently. Kind of unusual for this time of the year. Not unwelcome in the sense of we need the water, but a little bit unwelcome in the sense of what it means for change in the climate change. Some bumpy stuff coming up. I'm deliberately leaving some of the shots lingering, not because I think it's necessarily very interesting in and of itself, but that's a better way to, if you really want to know what these lenses do on the road, you kind of need to try and see as many different situations as possible. And I see my camera's drifting there. So yeah, probably not going to do very like snappy edits, but rather try and just leave the cameras running for where you get like a variation in road surface and that kind of thing. Like for instance here. As I said, I've had lots of rain recently. And also you notice, driving a small car, so I'm not driving particularly fast. Not trying to break the speed limit or do any racing, basically because I can't. Yeah. So you also need to factor that in if you're, a particularly fast driver or you want to film some racing, that kind of thing. Alright, sign off for now. Cheers. Right, guys. Now that I've edited the footage, I just want to have a quick conclusion. Just going to read from my notes, just make sure I cover everything. So, obviously, what you have seen so far is that the footage from the camera with the 8.25mm lens installed is not smooth. Now I use the word jittery rather than shaky because the big shakes are removed, but it's those fine moves that the camera cannot stabilize. Bearing in mind, of course, that I did use onboard stabilization. So if you want to use your GoPro where you just want to set up and go, then I don't think the 8.25mm lens would suit you. So if you do want to get rid of your typical GoPro fisheye distortion optically, and also get a little bit more of a zoom in, then I think the 3.37mm lens might suit you better. It won't be the same zoom as the 8.25mm lens, but it definitely gets rid of the fisheye distortion, and it produces a great image, and you don't need to worry about some form of external stabilizing platform. Me personally, my most preferred look from the GoPro is using the 8.25mm lens. So if it was up to me, or someone like me, if you are looking for that kind of look, and you want to completely get rid of the jitter from the camera, then you'd have to use it on a stabilizer. Personally, I still own the Calmer grip, and it works great with my camera installed with the 8.25mm lens. And therefore, of course, if you do that, then you won't be able to install the camera on your roof of your car. If you want to get that perspective, it'll have to be inside a protected environment, like your cabin. And it would, the setup and strike down and everything with putting this camera into use is obviously going to be longer, and it's not going to be a just quick get up and go kind of situation. Lastly, and on a pretty curious note, this is actually, creating this video is the first time I've actually ever put the footage from my GoPro with the 3.37mm lens next to the footage from my GoPro with the 8.25mm lens. And one thing I've noticed straight away, and I'll show you in these pics now, that the colors from the two cameras came out differently. Now I used exactly the same Pro Tune settings, so I will display that on the screen right now. But the white balance and the contrast between the two cameras was different. Now I prefer the colors from the camera that was using the 3.37mm lens. And at this time, I don't know why it's like this. Could it be the fact that my one GoPro is not working properly? Or could it be that the onboard sensors are quite steeply affected by the big differences in the way the 8.25mm lens handles light, differently compared to the stock GoPro lens? I strongly suspect that it is in fact the lens that creates this difference. And if that's so, then you might have to get more involved in actually setting up the camera manually. As you can see from my Pro Tune settings, I had the white balance on native and the shutter speed set on auto, just because I'm driving through varying light conditions. But if you're going to do it perfectly, you might have to set those manually. And that's, of course, if you want to create footage that's more natural. Because I found that the white balance from the camera with the 3.37mm lens was much closer to reality than the more kind of dirty look that I got from the camera with the 8.25mm lens. All right, guys, I hope that helped. Hit me up in the comment section if you have any questions. And please do consider subscribing to my channel. Don't put out a lot of content, but it's always nice to have you guys on board when I do. Cool, man. Take care. And as this video is made during the COVID-19 lockdown period, if you're seeing this now, then hope you're staying safe. And if you're seeing this in the future, well, you're watching a bit of history. Okay, take care. Cheers.